What's going on, everyone? It's a Friday. I'm recording this during school. I don't usually do that, and I think we'll probably have some announcements interrupt whatever. It is what it is. You all are at UA right now, so it's Friday. I'm recording this on Thursday. I'm gonna try not to stop too often because I think this part of the story might be a little boring. And you might be sitting there thinking, well, this whole story has been boring. Well, it's going to get more boring. I know some people might like the story, but I know there's a few people that don't like it. But we'll try to go quickly, okay? I will try not to stop too many times talking about these words that I think are pretty cool with the definition. There are a couple I'm going to have to stop and talk about. We'll also talk about the language of like roses. There's certain colors with flowers, and there's going to be a little bit of that like symbolism, a little bit. But all right, let's do this. We'll get it. Hopefully, we had a good class discussion. What happened? Leaves. Talking about leaves today. We're going to talk about flowers. Maybe not your favorite thing. We ended though on 92, paragraph 92, and she just crushed a bunch of leaves, but she kept one. It was kind of a heart-shaped one. Holding the leaf in her hand, Sang left the park and started walking home. Her pace was brisk and determined, and she had not planned to stop off anywhere. But along the way, she found herself pausing involuntarily before a florist shop window. On display were bright bunches of cut flowers in tall glass vases, splashes of red roses, white carnations, and yellow chrysanthemums. Oh, I didn't think I was going to pronounce that correctly. A lot of times you'll just hear that flower called a mum. Yeah, I'm not going to try it again because I'll mess it up. A vivid contrast to the gray October afternoon. In the shadows behind them were several potted plants, none of which she could identify. On an impulse, Sang swung open the door and entered. An elderly woman behind the counter looked up and smiled at her. Yes? Can I help you? She asked. Sang hesitated. Then she thrust out the heart-shaped green leaf in her hand and stammered, do you have this plant? I don't know its name. The woman took the leaf, studied it with interest. Why, yes, she said. That looks like a rose of Sharon. We have several in the nursery out back. She kept up a steady stream of conversation as little typo there, as she escorted Sang through the side door into an open courtyard where various saplings and shrubs stood. Of course, it's not the best time of. That doesn't even look like English right there. Is that tulip in another language? Planting, but at least the ground hasn't frozen solid yet. And if you dig a deep enough hole and put in some good compost, it should do just fine. Hardy plants, these roses of Sharon. Okay. If we're doing the whole, got to stop here for a second though. If we're doing the whole symbolism thing, and if those plants are hardy, another word for hardy is they're tough, they can withstand the winter. Well, maybe Sang is also tough if these plants are symbolic of how she is. All right. Right. Back to that. Pretty blossoms too. In the fall, in fact, okay, maybe. So maybe she's prettier than she thinks. Remember, she was looking in the car window and she thought she was kind of like frumpy and stuff. Look, there's still a flower or two left on this shrub. Nice shade of pink, isn't it? Sang looked at the single blossom left on the shrub. Looked small and washed out. The leaves on the shrub were of the same distinct serrated heart shape, but its flower looked wrong somehow. Uh-oh. If we're doing the whole, Sang is like these flowers thing, it looked wrong. So maybe in the back of her mind, she's having a little doubt. Before we get too far, I do want to really, really briefly, because this will probably happen in high school. You'll be reading some kind of story. Maybe there's a color that's symbolic. And sometimes with like flowers, right there, these colors sometimes are symbolic of something. For example, red sometimes means love. There's white there, sometimes means innocence. There's purple, A lot of times that's royalty, kings, queens, that kind of stuff. Yellow, friendship. So you can see other ones. I guess I've heard that if you receive like a dozen black roses, then that means somebody is wishing you like bad things, stuff like that, maybe death. So you can take a look at that if you would like. If anybody wants to, I can put on Google Classroom. You can take a closer look at it. But pink, I don't know. I'm in the language of flowers. It does also mean love. I don't know. It might be a stretch. Maybe sometimes colors just don't mean anything, or you can make it mean something if you want. All right, back to this, right where the blue is, right? Uh-oh, it looks wrong. Is there, I mean, can I have another kind of flower? Sang asked. Another color, maybe? Well, it also comes in a pale purplish shade, the woman said, helpfully, and white too. I think it was a deep color, she offered, then shook her head. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. Discouraged and feeling more than a little foolish, she started to back away. Wait, the florist said. I think I know what you're looking for. A slow smile deepened in the wrinkles in her face. Come this way. It's in our greenhouse. So that flower looked wrong. Maybe this flower will look right. At the top of the courtyard stood a shed, the like of which Sang had never seen before. It was made entirely of glass and seemed to be bathed in a soft white light. So sounds like a greenhouse to me right there. As she led the way, the floor started talking again. Luckily, we just got through moving in some of our tropical plants, she said, or the frost last weekend would have killed them off. Anything in there now, you'd have to leave indoors until next summer, of course. Next, keep that in mind. Next summer, okay? Next summer. Maybe there's some hope for next summer. Next to the big, it's kind of like the last line, spoiler. Next to a big south-facing window or under some strong neon lamps. Even so, some of the plants won't survive the long, cold winters here. Hothouse flowers, that's what they are. Not hardy, like those roses of Sharon I just showed you. Only half listening. Wait a second. Are you only half listening? Come on. Only half listening. Sang's only half listening. Hopefully you're doing more than just half listening. Hopefully you're totally listening. Whole listening. Sang wished there was a polite way that she could excuse herself and leave. It was late. She was starting to get hungry. Still, she dutifully followed the other woman through the greenhouse door and walked in. She gasped. It was like walking into another world. A hot, everybody's favorite word, a hot, moist world exploding with greenery. Huge flat leaves, delicate wisps of tendrils. Oh, this is a good one here. I do have to stop for this for a second. I wish I made that bigger. Sorry. You saw my face too much. Tendrils. We're going to be reading a story a little bit later on. Tendrils are like your hair could be tendrils. If I had a lot of hair, it might be considered a tendril. Like we're going to be reading about like a water plant in this kind of creepy story. But tendrils, the top of some fish, they might have tendrils. It's just like long, skinny things that might, in the wind, kind of wave like my fingers are or something like that. Tendrils. Oh, think of baby's hair. Hair can be in tendrils. All right. If you say that word too many times, it starts sounding weird. Tendrils. Ferns and fronds and vines of all shades and shapes grew in seemingly random profusion. So just kind of growing all over the place. No rhyme or reason, no pattern. Over there in the corner, the hibiscus, is that what you mean? The florist pointed to a leafy potted plant by the corner. There, in a shaft of the wan afternoon sun, was a single blood-red blossom. Its 5 petals splayed back to reveal a long stamen tipped with yellow pollen. Sang felt a shock of recognition so intense, it was almost visceral. Visceral means that like it hits you like down to your core. All right. If we're going with the whole symbolism thing, like she recognizes something. Does that mean anything to anybody? Maybe we'll stop after this. 10 minutes, I think, for these kind of like boring parts. probably enough. But if I pause that, hopefully somebody said, well, hang on, maybe we should read maybe one more, like these two lines here. All right. I don't know what that is. Saba, maybe something? Saba? Sang whispered. A Saba hedge, tall and lush, had surrounded their garden, its lush green leaves dotted with vermilion flowers, and sometimes, after a monsoon rain, a blossom or two would have blown into the well, so that when she drew up the well water, she would find a red blossom floating in the bucket. All right, so hopefully that helps a little bit. So this plant is also found in Laos, and it's also found here. I don't know. Does that mean anything to anybody? Oh, if she has a water well, that means she probably doesn't have running water back in Laos. So that would be interesting. But I think if this flower can be found here, I mean, it might need a little help. It can't survive the winter. So you might need to give it a little extra loving care or whatever, but it is able to survive here. So when she recognized that, I think the author was trying to get us to connect with like Sang's own feelings, like, ooh, well, if this plant can survive here, maybe with a little help, maybe I can survive here. Something like that. All right, that's enough. 11 minutes and a half, 11 minutes and 30 seconds. That's enough. Quiz from last week, due today. Vocabulary quiz. If you haven't taken that yet, if you need any help with it, let me know. If you're not sure, check Power School. No, it's not in Power School yet. Check Google Classroom, and it should say you've already submitted it. Work on that, work on anything else, and then we'll do a little Frank and Beans, and then we'll go home. Then it'll be the weekend. We'll get a couple days off. All right, adios, amigos.